Hi, so welcome to our presentation on inclusive hiring practices. My name is Rihanna Molas. Assisting is, also a part of the presentation is Chloe Sumner and Kayla Sheridan. Give us a wave, very nice. So this is a project that we've been working on for a good couple of months now. To talk about inclusive hiring practices from essentially the description to the interview. We started this project because of something that really connected us was experiencing, discrimination in the workplace due to lack of accessibility. So we wanted to sort of prevent something like that happening to anyone else by doing a little presentation, a little step-by-step guide, and a written guide that is also available now. So I wanted to start with a quick acknowledgement of country. The Brotherhood of St. Lawrence acknowledges the traditional custodians of the lands and waterways in which our organisation operates. For us here in Frankston, that's the Bunurong people. We pay our respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander elders, past and present. So feel free to put where you're standing on, if you know it, in the chat. So we're going to quickly just run through the agenda. So we're going to explain the benefit of inclusive hiring practices for everybody. We're going to unpack the hiring and application process from the job interview and description to the interview and beyond. We're going to revitalize the job description format and discuss ways that it can be improved. And of course, how to discuss minimizing discrimination in the hiring process and beyond it as well. So that's like onboarding and training, etc. So let's discuss the importance of inclusive hiring. First of all, is engagement. So with inclusive hiring practices, people from diverse backgrounds and lived experiences will be more engaged in the position, therefore increasing the applicant pool. So applicants will also have all the necessary information to decide whether the job is right for them and more aware of any potential adjustments that they may need. So of course, when sort of reading a position description, it can be really important to know the limitations of the job so they know whether or not the job is sort of right for them. Here at the National Collaboration of Employment and Disability, it's really important for us to sort of put forward the message that young people with disabilities are keen, passionate, and motivated to work. And these practices are about opening the floor to them, but not just them, to everyone. Universal design means sort of casting as wide a net as possible to help as many people as possible in this process, not just people with all kinds of disabilities, but also people who may not have English as a first language, and also people who might not have accessibility to certain things, whether for reasons personal or financial. So values. So our mission here at Brotherhood of St. Lawrence is working toward an Australia free of poverty. This is something we've been working on for now 90 years. In our division here at the NCD and at Youth Transitions, we have the 7 tests of advantage thinking. Advantage thinking emphasizes what people can do rather than what they can't do. And this builds young people's capacity to make positive decisions in their lives and think and act on their own behalf. It seeks to involve, understand, and invest in people, looking at them for their strengths rather than their struggles, while, of course, also acknowledging the struggles that we need to overcome. And also consider how you're screening out applicants. If you're willing to create an accessible and inclusive working environment and value lived experience, you need to be as open to as many candidates and lived experiences as possible. Think about what your internal biases are. Simplicity. Inclusive hiring doesn't just benefit the applicants, but the managers as well. This can give you not only a wide applicant base, but also a very precise applicant base, because if people know exactly what they are applying for, then you'll have people who know exactly, this is the kind of job I want to apply for. This is the kind of job that I'm qualified to do. So you have a lot of more people who are right for the job than not. So universal design features, they aren't just people who need it. It helps basically everybody have a simpler, more streamlined hiring process. And an additional benefit is that with a clear and concise application process, there is less need for a constant back and forth between applicant and hiring manager, less constant questions, which allows, more time for as many applicants to be interviewed as possible. So let's talk about writing an accessible job description. So it's important to use clear, simple, and yet precise language when writing an accessible job description. That means cutting unnecessary jargon and it keeps things brief. So it helps maintain engagement and getting your information across with as few words as possible. Because sometimes reading things that are long and unwieldy can be really difficult for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. For example, say about the Brotherhood of St. Lawrence rather than organizational purpose, or what you will do as a youth advisor rather than key responsibilities. So here we have the Wikipedia page for neurodiversity. This is just a quick guide to what plain language is. So as you can see, the neurodiversity paradigm is a framework for understanding the human brain, yada, 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 blah, 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 up the hill and down the hill, yakety, yakety, yak, a lot of long, unwieldy words that can make it quite difficult to sort of read through. So there's actually a really helpful website called the Plain English Wikipedia, or the Plain Language Wikipedia, because it's accessible in many different languages. And here is the Plain Language Wikipedia for neurodiversity. As you can see, neurodiversity is a word for differences in people's brains. It is a type of biodiversity, and then they explain what biodiversity means as well. It's the same sort of image, and it sort of conveys the same information, but in as few words as possible. And of course, choosing your words wisely. So it's, every word is sort of said with intention. Let's move on to format. This is something that is relatively okay. It's not like people are using cursive writing, like cursive fonts in your job description, but be sure to use dyslexia-safe fonts and formatting, including double spacing, to ensure that the description is easy to read. If images are included in the document, add alternative descriptive text. Another thing to make sure of is whether the document can be converted into text-to-speech. Allow the applicant some freedom in how they submit the application where possible. This can be done by making things like video submissions optional, because not everyone will have access to a camera, but everyone has access to their computer at their local library and their printer at their local library. So, also allow for in-person and email submissions, because like I said, not everyone might have access to a secure internet connection as well. Of course, there are a lot of places to get that for free. So it's good to sort of cast that net very widely and allow for as many people to submit in as many ways as they want. So sans serif fonts are the ones that are clearer, more rounded, and less stylized, and they're easy to read. I don't think anyone is using Curls MT or anything for their job applications, but the main examples are Arial, Calibri, Century Gothic, Tahoma, Trebuchet, Verdana, and yes, Comic Sans. That's actually known as a really good dyslexia-safe format, but I don't think we're doing any job descriptions in Comic Sans. So take it easy on the formatting, and overuse of italics and underlining can also make it difficult to read. And while it's called dyslexia safe, making things easier to read with these simple steps helps a wide range of people. Luckily, on everyone's computer, there is an option to zoom things in. So it's, it can be easier on both sides if it's just really easy to understand from the jump. So let's talk about writing an accessible job description. Clarity. Prioritize relevant information such as expectations and requirements for the position, as well as more concrete things such as hours, a salary range, and a location. Because not to be I don't want to be cynical about it, but what's really important to employees sometimes can be, am I getting paid enough to support me? Can I work these hours? And can I travel to a place easily? So it's important to know that, before you get too far into the job and too invested, or you get to the interview and oh, I can't actually do these hours. So instead of merely asking for a cover letter, try asking a couple questions regarding what the applicant can bring to the role. This is what is generally known as a key selection criteria. It's something that you see in a couple areas. It should be more widespread. And of course, the key selection criteria should be easier to understand. It lets the applicant know exactly the information you want as far as experience and values. It can also cut the unnecessary jargon from the applicant's end, and it can more efficiently show if they are the right candidate, because you're sort of getting exactly what you want to know about the applicant from them. So here's an example of an accessible position description.
Yep.
This was tailor-made by our previous employer, Annalie Griffin, for this specific position as a youth advisor. So as you can see, we have a very simple description of what we will be doing in the role, what they're looking for as far as, applicants. This was a youth advised position, so we weren't looking for anyone with like fancy qualifications or anything, but very specific, but very simple things. Caring about issues that affect young people with disability, good at talking to people who want to be better at it, working well with others or on your own, using a computer, rather than saying, proficiency in Microsoft programming or something. Just, can you work a computer good? Great. Here are some more examples. So here are the job conditions. Really important. 3 hours a week, casual position, 32 to 36 an hour. And also how to apply. Anna instructed us to send the CV to her directly, and a short response as to why we're interested in the role and caring about people with disabilities, and also giving multiple options, like making it a video recording or an audio recording. And of course, inclusive practices was very important to her. So let's move on to the job interview. So let's discuss understanding. So some people who are neurodivergent or experiencing poor mental health may experience a lot of anxiety during job interviews. And, even if they're not, it's a really nerve-wracking process. So it's important to hold space and be patient with people who maybe flub their words and they're nervous. Everyone's slipping up. I think I've even slipped up a couple of times while presenting this thing to you. So you can assist in this by allowing applicants to prepare by sending information about the interview in advance. Provide interview questions in advance so applicants aren't put on the spot. This can make them feel more comfortable and equipped to approach questions in the best manner possible. So from employers that I've known in my own, real life, there's been a bit of contention about providing the questions in advance. I understand that for some employers, answering things on the spot might be a little important. So of course your mileage may vary on that, whether or not, between like, do you want people to be sort of prepared and more confident, or do you want people to sort of know the material by heart? So your mileage may vary on that. It is a way to make things more inclusive, but I do understand that if people are maybe concerned about people asking ChatGPT about with the interview questions or something like that. Accessibility. So when setting up an interview, it's important to sort of ask your applicant about any accessibility requests and confirm them, whether that be, for example, an interpreter for sign language, and of course, give them time in advance for the applicant to organize. And, good time, not just like 24 hours. Be sure to book a time that is like good for them. Access keys are a useful way to outline the physical space of the interview to the applicant. Access keys describes the physical location both inside and out. It tells people what will happen at an event. It helps everyone know about the access in and around the venue, and it shows people that you are actually like really serious about including everyone. Another way to increase accessibility is an option for an online interview. So post-COVID, this is something that we're seeing more often. And this in particular is super convenient for employers because sometimes it's hard to take time out of your day, set up a room and, arrange, see what travel times are good for them or when they'll be able to make it, etc. So it's good to just be able to say, hey, here's the team link. Let's have an hour to have a little chat. This is usually really good for those sort of first round interviews when you're just trying to feel people out. Communication. You're going to hear me say that a lot. Offer an explanation behind each question to mitigate confusion and explain what you're doing and why as an interviewer. It can be really intimidating to have someone watch you and scribbling down notes like you're going for some sort of medical exam. And of course, provide options for unsuccessful interview candidates to receive feedback. So you don't have to call each one of them one by one. I understand your time is precious, but even a simple automated message and a way to contact you directly via email or phone would work wonders for someone who just wants to know how they've done in an interview and why they didn't get chosen so they can improve in the future. So let's move on to an activity. So I'm going to ask my two youth advisors, and you guys can of course pop your answers in the chat. What is a better way to ask this typical and really vague interview question? Tell us about yourself. Okay. I'm a Scorpio. I like to roller skate, and my favorite food is spaghetti and meatballs. Like, what do you actually want to know? So I'm going to move on to Chloe and Kayla. What is a better way to ask? Tell us about yourself.
Ella, would you like to go first? Yeah. I don't know why people don't make that question more like, tell us about yourself. I would say something like, tell us about why you want to work for us, or maybe like, what makes you think you would be the right person to apply for a job with us?
Yeah, I like that. I had something similar. I got a good alternative is maybe tell us about like your passions that drew you to apply to this position, because it narrows the scope of the question down to be more relevant to obviously what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's great. So let's
We've
take a
got
look.
a few in the chat. So Julia says, what experience can you bring to the role? I really like that one.
Mm.
Brings it back again to the role itself and not just a vague, open-ended, tell us about yourself question. Tell us about the skills you'll bring to our organization. Yeah, Fiona says, tell me about how this job connects with your values and passion and any relevant experience, work, personal that you would like to share. I really like that too. That's really great. What do you think, Mariana?
I think those are really, really good. Sorry, Jan, if you haven't answered, just pop it in the chat.
Yep, and yeah.
So Jan wrote that tell us about yourself question is to help the person relax as they know themselves best. That's good. That is really good. But of course, you also want to know exactly, want to sort of get exactly the information you want out of your applicant, to save time. Well, not to save time, but also, yeah, to get the right information out of the applicants. The applicant understands precisely what you are asking of them.
And I'll just add, for me as an autistic person, a vague question like that is really hard for me to narrow down what exactly you're looking for. So tell us about yourself in any context. Could be something like, what's my favorite color? Or, what am I doing later? What are my hobbies? But like in this context, it's obviously you're looking for something specific, and just changing the wording helps people to like understand the question first up. Some people don't always infer exactly what you mean.
Say what you mean and mean what you say. Essentially, it tends to be the best sort of approach.
Yeah.
Training. So be aware of any mandatory training or training requirements that may be inaccessible or on an inaccessible platform. So this can be really important. So the ways that the employer can help that is, give someone more time to present. Give someone more time to do the training modules if they don't have access to the computer or the modules at home. Or another good way to do it is through like a printed sort of format as well, so they can sort of read it and do it by hand. So essentially just, give people some direction and some help as to how they can, better do the training. And sorry, just trying to pull up our notes. It's okay. Sorry. Forgive me for this. But yeah, it's very important just to give people so yeah. So yeah, offer people specific just options and create a system of solutions rather than barriers. Be sure that make sure that people aren't being like really heavily scolded for what they're doing, and make sure to help them rather than hinder their growth within the company. And of course, make sure the employee is aware of not only their responsibilities but of their rights as well. Be sure they know who the HR person is, who their union is if applicable. Be sure they know what to do if there's ever a situation. Hopefully that won't happen, but if there's ever a situation where their employee is being mistreated, then definitely give people the access that they need. So let's talk about onboarding. So Be very clear about the expectations about the position and what a day-to-day situation will be. Ease employees in. That can be starting work slowly. So if the role is only 2 days a week, maybe start the first week on 1 day and then gradually move to 2 days or the first few days. That can be more about learning the role, getting to know the staff, and have a staff member be their buddy or go-to person. Once again, solutions, not barriers. An accessible environment will not only look different for each job, but each person. So be sure to communicate on a one-to-one basis. Don't make assumptions on what people need. Just ask. We know what we need. And once again, ensure there is adequate support available. Once again, communication. Discuss with an employee how they can perform their best. Ensure the employee is aware of how to let you know if accommodation is needed and needs to be changed, and keep that line open. Of course, we have things like right to disconnect, so don't have people messaging you after hours. I understand that an open door policy can be really difficult, but maybe give your employee a way to set up a time and date for a little catch up, essentially, to discuss different accommodations. If the employee, for example, has a disability employment service provider or consultant, be sure to communicate with them as well. It's their job to represent, advocate for the employee if they can't. And of course, that's not just disability employment services. Be sure to ask your employee other people who will advocate for them, whether it be a parent, a friend, a carer, but just be sure to ask them rather than making sure, assumptions on who to go talk to, because sometimes that can be a bit personal, a bit complicated. So once again, just communicate with your employee about who would be the best person to advocate for them, and have your employee communicate with them as well. So just a nice, flow of information from everybody. So let's have another discussion. Let's discuss other ways we can implement inclusive practices in work life, both in the hiring process and after it. I'm going to move it along to Chloe and Kayla.
Yes, please. Making sure that there is space to ask questions, taking the time to do some training. It's okay to ask questions when we need help.
For sure. I had similar things. Simple ways of making things inclusive could be during meetings, like at the start, how we have the captions turned on, how we explained it's okay to pop in and out as you need, and having flexible workspaces and continued opportunity to discuss accommodations is also really important, especially for dynamic disabilities. Some disabilities, their functioning and what they need day-to-day changes. So it's really important to keep that communication open and have continued opportunities to talk about it. Really helps with being inclusive.
Of course, and let's see what they're saying in the chat.
Then says, I think checking in with what makes sense for each person as well. Everyone is unique with their needs. Yeah, 100%. I am very passionate about that and how different people, productivity and stuff looks different for different people, and what works for one person won't always work for another.
You know what they say about assuming.
Yeah. Oh, that's exactly reasonable adjustment. Julia says we have recently provided a restroom for a staff member with fatigue. It's excellent. Fiona says diversifying hiring panels, inclusive language, accessible onboarding, flexible work options, regular check-ins about any accommodations needed, investment in active supervision support informed by employees' preferences and needs. Yeah, perfect. And Annalise says actively asking people what they need on a regular basis, so changing accommodations can be addressed. Yes, that is my number one. Regular check-ins and taking action when required. Yes, employees check in but don't take action. Yeah, 100%. Explain that start and finish time can be varied. buddy system in place. That's a really good one. Foster psychological safety through inclusive leadership and active listening. Yes, disability employee network.
Okay, so let's continue on to our panel. Chloe and Kayla are going to share their experiences and bust myths about inclusive and equitable hiring. So myth number one, implementing inclusive hiring would be inconvenient for the employer. It's just too much work. I don't want to do it. It's too much fuss. So what would you say to someone who says that?
It shouldn't be too much work to hire a person with disability. If the employer thinks it is going to be too hard, then they might just need some more education. It doesn't have to be big to make a difference. Inclusive hiring doesn't mean having to change everything all at once. It could be making a lot of small adjustments. Having an inclusive hiring process helps to understand and see what someone's talents and skills. It gives more of an equal power balance in the process.
Great. And what about a second myth? Implementing inclusive hiring is expensive. It's just too much money, too much cheddar to implement inclusive hiring practices.
Well, I will say that job access, I was just about to say that, Jen, most adjustments are free. And in the case of ones that do, there is programs like job access or the NDIS that can help pay. And communication is probably one of the main things, and that is obviously free. Just ensuring proper communication, clear communication. It won't cost money to change our position description to be more accessible. It might actually be more productive in the long run, because with hiring, as if the position description is easier to understand, you may get better suited applicants. And there's also actually evidence that employees with disability take fewer sick days. They incur lower staff and related business costs and are more likely to be loyal to your business. So basically, the more supportive and inclusive you are, the more loyal and committed your employee will be to the company. It will mutually benefit you both rather than being a burden or a cost.
Right. And our third myth, implementing inclusive hiring isn't necessary. Who needs it? Not important.
So as I was just saying in regard to the previous myth about costs, being inclusive means you can maximize the output of staff while minimizing the stress of the role. You're creating the perfect conditions for success. And adjusting your view of what productive looks like. People with disability are ready and willing to work. We want to work. So it's necessary because it protects you as a business, from being discriminatory. It allows you for a wider range of applicants. It just opens up so much more. And I think it is really important.
So what has your experience of inclusive hiring been?
It has been really good. I feel like I had the time to know what's happening and rather than being in a big rush. I had the time to ask questions without being rushed and have things broken down in all plain language and in smaller chunks, which is helpful for me. I feel comfortable and had all the information about what was expected of me was very clear so I could be myself. It's not an overwhelming workplace, and I have people to ask questions if I'm not sure. And taking the time to do some training, it's okay to ask questions when we need help. This way of working is important because it made me feel like I'm a safe work environment and I can be myself and people are listening to me and what I have to contribute. I've learned that this job is a good one for advocacy. We can do this. We are capable to have a job and make a contribution. I want people with disabilities to be able to equally contribute and have paid and stable work.
This role was my first experience of a true inclusive hiring process, I guess. It was my first time feeling completely confident in that I understood exactly what the position description was asking, the key selection criteria was there, how my skills and strengths aligned with the role. In a lot of other applications, I often felt like I got it, but I was doing my best, but like I never truly understood exactly what was there because it was a lot to take in, and it was I know for me, I take things very literally. So if I don't tick every key selection criteria, then I'm like, I can't apply for that role. And so if I don't understand that all the key selection criteria, it deters me even more because I can't understand what they're asking. And I'm like, I definitely can't do that. It's really important to work in this way inclusively because it doesn't only help those with disability, but those who may be disadvantaged in other areas as well, as we've talked about. Like being inclusive shouldn't be seen as a burden. It should be seen as an opportunity to get the widest range of candidates that are suitable for the role. And your current employees, if you make adjustments in your workplace, you may find that your current employees may benefit, which will make a happier, supportive, more successful environment.
Yeah, so is that why you think this way of working is important?
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. I love yeah, don't think you meet the key selection criteria for the current role. Yeah, it's such a intimidating list of things in the position description, I find, and it's just really hard to understand. Like you don't have to meet every one of them to be a suitable candidate for the job. And I think by making the thing written in an easier to understand way, it allows that understanding a bit more too. And Fiona says key selection criteria are often not written in a way that considers someone's ability to meet them with appropriate. 100%. Yeah. And that's my big thing about like readjusting what your views of what productive looks like, because I can do most things on those lists. I just may need to do it a different way than what is considered like the normal or the standard way. It doesn't mean I can't do it. It just means that I need to do it different way, and I'll still end up with the same result.
Mm. So, in conclusion, job searching is already an anxiety-inducing task for everybody. No one likes to be unemployed. No one likes to be on workforce, shifting through Indeed and Seek and looking through 100 jobs. It's, not just anxiety-inducing, it's a chore. So it can be tenfold for people who are already struggling in a wide capacity of ways, not even just necessarily, living with a disability or living as neurodivergent, but just people who are, struggling financially, struggling in their personal life. So it's an unnecessarily complicated application process isn't some litmus test for how smart you are. It stops recruiters from getting as many interested applicants as they could be, because when you have an application that's big and unwieldy and difficult to understand, then people are going to be switched off. Empathy and consideration are important because we've all been on the other side of the desk. We've all been job searchers. We've all been rejected at a million interviews. We've all been ghosted by possible employers. So it's just important to remember that they have been going through the same thing that you've gone through. These universal design points can help not only a wide range of applications, but make things more convenient for recruiters as well, as we've sort of discussed. It gives you a wider yet more precise application pool and can, cut the waffle, as they say in the business world, and, make sure that everyone is clear in what the expectations are for the role. And once again, communication. Talk to your employees, talk to their advocates if they have them. Just be sure to keep that line open and make it, make people feel safe to come and talk to you, because that can be intimidating as well. No one likes, feeling like they're asking too much of someone, even if it's something that they actually need. And if you're making it unwelcoming, then people won't get the help that they need. Our final discussion point. So just to, put forward, this is our inclusive and accessible hiring guide. This project was sort of made in collaboration by all of us, but spearheaded by Chloe, and of course formatted by the lovely Anna-Marie Griffin and our team here at our team here as well. So be sure to scan that QR code. Look, it's a photo of me. Don't I look bloody cool? The whole thing is beautifully written and beautifully presented. So be sure to scan that QR code. So our final discussion point for today is, what is one thing you have heard today that you would like to take back and implement to your organization? And Kayla and Chloe, if there's something that you would like to see taken back and implemented, what would it be?
The policy should be broken down, making it more simple and clearer to understand by taking notes and using plain language.
That's a good point. Yeah, policies can be really unwieldy and hard to understand, and it really trips people up and gets them in trouble. So it's important to make everything clear so everyone knows the rules. So what about you, Chloe?
I think practically, if I was asking someone to take away one thing, I'd say to ensure the job description and advertisement is written in a way that's inclusive and accessible. But in general, if you take away anything from today, just take away the fact that inclusivity and accessibility doesn't have to be right immediately. Sometimes that's the scary part, is like you don't want to make a mistake or not do it right. But just doing little bits and changes can be amazing, and it can be steps, it can be trying. Like, it doesn't have to be everything all at once, and it doesn't have to be completely right immediately. Like, you can learn, you can change, but as long as you're growing and you're trying, that's all we can ask for with trying to be inclusive and accessible.
What's the chat saying, Chloe?
Give me 1 second. And so Annalie says, normalizing creating inclusive work environments where people can identify what allows them to be their best. Jane says, changing out the language in our job ads. Yep. Different ways of applying, not just telling people to go to the website. Yeah, 100%. Having those options of like in-person, video, whatnot, what you said earlier, Rihanna. Simplify the written ads and look for ways to be inclusive in the interview process. Yes, 100%. I find the interview process is so intimidating, especially when they give you nothing to prepare yourself for. And you know nothing going into it. It's just you're going in absolutely with nothing to know, and you're just having to make it up all on your own. Adapted recruitment processes. I have to request this on the daily and provide insight around how to represent candidates outside of the normal process. And track back to the very first point. A potential candidate will interact with the org ad recruitment process and make sure it's increased accessibility, inclusion, stuff. So yeah, 100%. Even with like the websites and like ensuring, I know like putting job ads up on like Seek and stuff is the easy way, but those websites aren't always accessible. So ensuring that it's up in multiple ways. Interviews, Michelle says, interviews are not always the best way to find the right employee. I agree with that 100%, because sometimes you just don't come across well in the interview. Like, there's the anxiety we talked about. And yeah, Rihanna, what do you think?
So with interviews, yeah, I mean, it's the same with making video submissions. That's become really popular. I hate it. Because one, it sort of brings in this internal bias of like, are you hiring or, skipping over an employee because of how they look or sound, and that can get in the way of a lot of people, like a lot. That's just how confirmation that's, it's not even just a mark on someone's character. It's just how confirmation bias works. And it can be daunting. And yeah, not everyone is a strong speaker, and that can really get in someone's way. And people, a lot of people aren't comfortable in front of a camera. So I think something really important that I hope everyone takes home is, make video submissions optional both ways. That's just a really important one to me.
Yeah, Keely said front-loading interview prep, providing access keys to all candidates so they know exactly what to expect, allows reduction of barriers and anxiety. And that's something that is in the guide, is how to create like an access key for the location of the interview if it's an in-person, social scripts to help with obviously what to expect. And yeah, I think that's really important.
Mel agrees on the video screening. It's non-inclusive and it's timed. Like I know that I talk really, really fast, but some people might really panic if they're under like, you have 1 minute to tell us why why you're good for this job. And I get why, like, sure, it is easier to just watch a 1 minute video than read through a resume, but are you really getting the full breadth of your applicant if they have just 1 minute to talk about themselves? Yes, we do. Yeah, we have a lot of good samples of access keys. All right. So I think unless anyone else has anything vital to say, uh, that'll wrap us up. Thank you guys so much for watching our presentation. Thank you very much to Chloe and Kayla for their lovely panel and takes and opinions. Thank you to Annalee for helping us out for the past couple months. And thank you to our audience. You guys have all been great. Thank you for engaging in the panel. Thank you for Amy DeManuel for giving us a hand. Thank you for Amy for Bree Jenkins, who is right there next to me, and Amy Scott and Adriano and everyone who has helped us since last September to sort of make this presentation as good as can be and prepare us for presenting it in front of you all. This has been such a wonderful team to work with.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. We really appreciate you being open to change and being open to learning about what inclusive hiring looks like. And a reminder that our guide is now available as well and will be included in the wrap-up email from the webinar.
All right. Okay, bye everybody.
Bye. Thank you. Bye. Thank you.